My name is Chris McGuire, recovered alcoholic, October 8, 2006. I'm the clinical outreach for Discovery Point Retreat here in Texas. I think where it started was for self-esteem, wanting to be liked, wanting to be that person that everybody came to. And then it became not only that, but to me it also became a power. A sense of me having power, when ultimately I didn't have power. So back to me being the business person, the business mindset, okay, why don't I just start buying quantity? But at that same time, it's gone from smoking pot to the harder drugs. Starting out with cocaine, starting out doing acid. So, and then it eventually, I started buying quantity. I made a trip down to Mexico, across the Laredo border, and we met up with the mafia. I wasn't scared at all. That's the sad part is, I guess when I made that final decision that I wanted to go to that type of lifestyle, dealing with that type of individual or individuals, that my mind was set that I knew that either one day that I would go to prison or one day I'd probably get killed. And I became okay with that. That's not normal. We met up with them in the middle of the night, and they come out with bodyguards, tell us if we fuck them over, that they'd kill us. The next thing you know, we're snorting cocaine with them. And that's where it started, with the amount of drugs and money were being brought up to me. I fell in love with the whole lifestyle. I fell in love with the drugs. I fell in love with the women. I fell in love with the money. Everything about that lifestyle I fell in love with, and knew the consequences that could possibly happen. My addiction started spiraling out of control too as well. Eventually the meth started coming into play, and I couldn't control my using, and it became to where that's all I thought about was the using, instead of making money or selling or being the businessman that we're saying. It caused issues with my family. Didn't speak to my dad or sister probably a good 4 or 5 years. Broke into my aunt's house. Made the front page of the Dallas Morning News twice on how they weren't doing their job in catching me. And it quickly spiraled out of control. Even when I faced a 20-year sentence, when I got out of prison, 3 days later I was right back using. I was right back to selling. Quit reporting because I didn't want to stop. And then eventually it was hiding out at mom's house, and we'd gotten into an argument one night, and then that next morning I hear that knock. The police have a knock that and I'm halfway out of her apartment, and she tells me it's the Boy Scouts at the door. And I stop and I look at her, and she opens up the door and looks at me and just starts bawling. Needless to say, the Boy Scouts weren't selling cookies that day. They had handcuffs. And it was supposed to be an automatic 10-year sentence for me. Dallas County, I see probation for Dallas County, and they're telling me that I'm going to be released. So that night I'm waiting for my name to be released, and I never hear it. Come to find out that it got back to the DA's desk. The DA remembered who I was and tried to pursue the 10-year sentence for me. So I went to court asking for help. Now what I think is important is, at that time I didn't want the help. It was the easier way out for me. 6 months of something hardcore, or 10 years of being in prison. And you'll hear a lot of guys locked up that they would rather go do prison time than go do something hardcore treatment-wise for 6 months, because it becomes a lifestyle for them. To me, SAP is hardcore. It's the state of Texas treatment. It's behavior modification. I had no clue what I was about to step into. Before I get to Safe Pete though, I got sent to Huntsville. So I had to go to an actual prison unit first, actually 2 prison units on my way to Safe Pete. When I got to my second unit, I had a dream about who I thought had snitched me out. And to this day, I don't remember where it is in the Bible, but for some reason that night I opened up the Bible and it talked about not seeking revenge. And I wrote my mom about it. That letter is what made her decide to tell me that she was the one that had turned me in. When the cops came knocking at the door and she told me it was the Boy Scouts, she was the one that did that. And it was the hardest decision of her life, because her whole plan was to go in front of the judge to see if they would send me to treatment. Because it got to where she didn't want to get that phone call at night about me being dead. She would do anything in the world to get me out of trouble. She would do anything in the world if I asked, if I was needing something, because, you know, that's that mother love, that mother intuition. And she didn't want to give up on me. One of the things that she would always say is, my son's dead. And she was right. Everything about me was dead. Mentally, spiritually, physically, even though I was alive, I was dead. And that's why I like to say, a lot of times when I share my story, is there's a part in our literature, in our 12-step program, that says that we are reborn. And in order to be reborn, you have to die. And when I read that part, I totally understood what she was saying. You know, I'm the last one in the family. And so when I went into sober living and when I got into the 12-step programs, it gave me a family bigger than I could have ever imagined. And it became my passion of not only helping individuals get sober, but also helping families. And that way, that hopefully that I'm able to help change someone's life to where they don't have to go through what I went through, or a family doesn't have to go through what my mom and them went through. My motto is, I'm not living life if I'm not helping other lives become better. You know, this is my first time in recovery, and I almost have 15 years. But at that same time, I know if I don't maintain my recovery, if I don't help others, if I don't keep my relationship with my higher power, that I can go out just like that and be right back into that lifestyle. And I'm no different than anybody else. But relapse does not have to be a part of your story. And if it is a part of your story, it doesn't ever have to be a part of your story again.